After sealing the terms of the nuclear agreement with the U.S., Iran is ready to talk money. $100 billion, that's how much Iran could potentially withdraw from oil sales once the sanctions are lifted. So will the country help its own struggling population and invest in domestic development? Or will it realize Western fears and seek regional power through nuclear arms? Ayman Sikseck looks at the numbers.
In December of 2006, the United Nations took a stand against Iran. In a Security Council meeting, the American ambassador to the world body finally delivered on U.S. threats and introduced what would later become the first of many such steps against Iran: sanctions.
Today we are placing Iran in the small category of states under Security Council sanctions and sending Iran an unambiguous message that there are serious repercussions to its continued disregard of its obligations and defiance of this body.
Already in that meeting, Iran accused Western powers of plotting to isolate it. Spearheading Iran's accusations was a little-known ambassador who would soon become Iran's biggest PR success, Mohammad Jawad Zarif.
It is not an open secret that their sole objective from the negotiations has always been to impose and then prolong and then perpetuate the suspension of Iran's rights in line with their arbitrary and fluctuating red lines.
Nearly 10 years on, Zarif seems to have followed through on his word. The Iran nuclear deal entails the gradual lifting of years of sanctions, which have stopped the country from cashing in on oil sales. Iran now stands to have access to up to $100 billion from previous oil sales to India, Japan, South Korea, and Turkey. Following the lifting of sanctions, Iran could make another $300 million in 2016, with an estimated nationwide economic growth of 8%. But Iran is also in heavy debt, an estimated $35 billion in total. And though it has greatly improved its inflation rate from 42% in 2013 to 15% this year, the influx of money could significantly destabilize its economy. So what will Iran do with the money? Its people seem to be in the most dire need of it. Iran could provide aid to 15 million people currently living under the poverty line. Over 1 million university graduates in the country are unemployed, and payments to government employees have not been made in months. But the country is most likely to support political parties ahead of parliamentary elections in February 2016. The elections will determine Iran's new standing in the Middle East as it becomes increasingly powerful among its neighbors. This prospect is not lost on those who are opposed to the deal.
Friends, what you will see if we make this agreement is a nuclearized Middle East. The other Sunni Arab nations will not sit by and watch Iran acquire nuclear weapons.
But such concerns go beyond Iran's nuclear ambitions. If Iran invests even 5 to 10% of its potential $100 billion, this will result in $5 to $10 billion in support of Hezbollah and other hostile organizations. Iran will also keep 19,000 of its centrifuges and part of its enriched uranium. Not surprisingly, apprehension in the Middle East is growing.
The deal agreed to in Vienna, I regret to say, paves this terrorist regime's path to the bomb. The alternative to this bad deal is not war. The alternative is a better deal that would roll back Iran's military nuclear program.
Iran's behavior also worries Arab countries. Saudi Arabia and its Sunni Arab allies fear Tehran will use unfrozen assets to lock in its gains in Arab nations from Iraq to Yemen, in an effort to move from being the most sanctioned Middle Eastern country in the past decade to the most powerful in the next.
A lot of numbers. Correspondent Ayman Sikseck is here with me. More numbers about this, about two deals that were already signed.
Two deals. The first one and the most surprising is European companies are vowing to invest $2 billion.
$2 billion.
$2 billion in Iranian economy. Now, this has nothing to do with oil, surprisingly. It has to do with agriculture and textile, two of the most important industries in Iran, after oil and gas, of course. $2 billion will be invested in the coming 2 years, but that is chump change when you consider what Iran is hoping for war in the next decade.
Which means?
Which means up till 2020, Iran is eyeing $180 billion in investments from foreign companies in other countries in oil and gas. Now, this continues to be Iran's main export to other countries, and they're counting on it to bring in a lot more money.
You know, they're counting on it to bring a lot more money, and it's just like I'm thinking, and the more that you're saying the numbers, the more I'm worried, because I understand why the Middle East and Israel and the Sunni Arab states are worried about this, because you get more money and then you can get more arms.
Well, Iran's really formal numbers show us a slightly different picture. If we look at the numbers from 2014, Iran's government spent its budget, 59% of it was on social issues. Now that includes education and health, 17% on economic matters, only 15% on defense, much less than you would expect. But these numbers don't tell us what was spent on supporting Houthi rebels in Iran, what was spent on supporting certain factions in Syria, and what will be spent in the next coming years. And of course, this is a major concern for Saudi Arabia particularly.
And we're not talking about culture, we're not talking about education, we're not talking about welfare. Is these departments has any chance to get anything from this, or corruption is going to eat everything in Iran when they will see this amount of money?
Well, I think people in Iran that have to do with culture and theater and poetry, what they're doing in the past few years is doing these things independently. We recently talked about the Daesh cartoon competition that's going on in Iran. That was also an independent initiative. What's happening is culture is being outsourced from the government because it's not getting enough money. We know what that's like here in Israel, but the situation in Iran is far greater. Now, if you ask the Iranian government, a lot of this money will go to these sectors. We will have to wait and see if that will be true.
Definitely, we will have to wait and see a lot of numbers. But one more thing I want to ask from you, and is it about the corruption? Is it something that we're seeing some kind of a critique on it, or just we know that it's going to happen and that's it?
Well, Mohammad Jawad Zarif did promise to end corruption once the sanctions are lifted and once Iran is able to access the money that's right now frozen in foreign banks. Now, he said that the corruption only happens because they're not able to access this money. Let's see when they have the money now, what they will do.
A lot of questions and a lot of question marks, and a lot of money is on the table. Ayman Sikseck, thank you very much for this. We're going out for a small break, 2 minutes, and I'll be back for the second part of the news today. Don't go anywhere.